Hey there, Sleepy Historian here. Tonight, you're not guarding the gates of the Bastille or standing among the crowd as a king loses his crown. No, tonight is slower, quieter, and far more humiliating. You are not a queen. You are not a revolutionary. You are a maid, the lowest-ranked servant in the grandest palace in Europe. Your fingers bleed behind silk curtains. Your stomach growls beneath gilded ceilings. And while powdered nobles sip chocolate and whisper about wigs, you scrub their chamber pots and watch their world unravel from the shadows. Before we descend into tarnished mirrors, powdered hypocrisy, and the velvet decay of Versailles, do me one small favor. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love knowing who's tuning in from around the world. And if you'd like early access to more of these sleep-friendly spirals through history, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, you'll find the Patreon link in the description. Now lie back, get comfortable. Maybe wrap yourself in a soft blanket for extra coziness. I'll put a link to the one I like in the description. Let's begin. You arrive at Versailles under a dishwater gray sky. Your shoes are soaked through, your hands raw from the cart ride that brought you here. No one meets you at the gate. You are not expected with joy. A porter glances at the folded letter you were told to carry and grunts without reading it. Then he gestures you toward a side path without words, as if pointing out a molehill in a field. Your mother told you this was an honor, that serving in the palace meant safety, respect, perhaps even the chance to better yourself. But as you trail behind the man in the gray waistcoat, it feels less like arriving at court and more like disappearing into a labyrinth. The palace is larger than anything you've ever imagined. Not just big, but consuming. Versailles doesn't merely house people, it swallows them. The windows stretch taller than any church you've known, framed in gold and glinting like teeth. The marble floors are cold, even through your worn soles, polished so sharply you fear you'll leave shameful smudges with every step. Oil paintings loom from the walls, taller than your father. Saints, gods, kings, their eyes follow you with patient disdain. You feel not just poor, but unmade. Every movement, every twitch of your hand feels out of place. You try to stop breathing through your mouth because the palace smells like beeswax, violets, and the kind of sweet rot that lives under furniture no one has moved in 50 years. You're not taken through the front, of course. Girls like you don't walk under gilded arches. You're led around the side, past kitchen doors belching steam, down corridors that grow narrower the deeper you go. A matron with a tight bun and looser temper takes your name, if you can call it that. She mutters it once incorrectly, then forgets it entirely. She thrusts a folded shift into your arms. The linen is so stiff it crackles and gives you your first instruction: don't speak unless spoken to. When you nod, she adds, and even then, only if the words are worth more than the silence. Your quarters are in the attic above the stables, reached by stairs that groan beneath your feet, and a hallway so low you must duck to pass. The room is dark even at midday. 4 cots, all narrow, one already sagging in the middle. 3 other girls, 2 asleep, 1 picking lice from her hair. They don't look up when you enter. The ceiling is sloped and stained with old water damage. There's a bucket in the corner that no one mentions, but you understand its purpose. The air is thick with dust and the tang of old vinegar used to scrub away whatever came before you. There's no welcome, but also no cruelty, just fatigue. They've seen too many girls arrive like you, fresh from the provinces, eyes wide, body trembling like a rabbit in a royal garden. In the morning, someone bangs a pan outside the door and shouts for linens. You follow the others in a half stumble, your apron twisted, your hair knotted from restless sleep. There is no time for combing. You're handed a stack of towels and a bar of rough soap and told to make yourself useful. You do not yet know what that means. Your hands shake as you scrub, fold, and stack. You are not fast and not praised for trying. A thin woman with a face like a broomstick informs you that eye contact with your betters is not encouraged. They don't need to see you, she says, and you don't want to be seen. No one explains the hierarchy, but you begin to feel it anyway. The housemaids look down on the kitchen girls. The kitchen girls look down on the chambermaids. The chambermaids barely speak at all. You learn quickly that difference is safer than questions, and silence is more useful than correctness. You don't yet know where you fit, so you float. You shadow others when you can. You memorize the turns of each hallway by scent. Boiling cabbage here, lavender soap there, the sharp vinegar edge of foot wash near the servant's stairs. Sometimes, by accident or poor timing, you find yourself too close to the world of nobles. A footman yanks you back by the sleeve when you nearly step into the view of a marquise. You are told that the Queen's ladies prefer not to see stray bodies in their periphery. You are not a servant in the story Versailles tells itself. You are scaffolding, architecture, necessary but best hidden. One of the older maids mutters that even rats live better here. At least they're allowed to make noise. At night, you lie in your cot and stare at the ceiling beams. They are warped and splintered, and one is carved with initials no one claims. The air grows damp after midnight. You hear mice in the walls, and once in the dark, you think you hear someone crying, but the sound is so faint you might have imagined it. Your feet ache. Your hands feel bruised, even though you haven't done anything yet. Your muscles are already tired from anticipation. No one tells you what time to sleep, but the candle is snuffed before you can finish thinking about home. You had imagined something more structured, an assignment, a start date. Instead, you are simply absorbed into the fabric of the place, folded into the invisible machine that oils the stage without ever stepping on it. You clean a basin someone else dirted. You sweep a stair someone else claims. You carry bundles without knowing where they're going. The palace moves without you, but somehow, it still leans on your back. The servants here don't speak much, but they watch. They see how you carry yourself, how quickly you learn to step aside, to vanish mid-task when a noble passes. One girl gives you a second-hand kerchief when you sneeze. Wordlessly, another steals your bread. It evens out. You stop thinking of kindness as anything but temporary. The rules here are not printed. They are enforced in glances, in silences, in which stares you're permitted to take, and which you are not. You begin to understand the layers of Versailles, not just rooms stacked on rooms, but lives stacked on lives. The nobles glitter above you, drunk on themselves. Below them, the majordomos, the valets, the chamberlains, the ladies' maids. Below them, the laundry girls, the scrubbers, the linen carriers. Below even them you. The last rung. There is no one to step on but the floor. You tell yourself this is temporary. You tell yourself it is better than starving. You are not yet sure if that is true. Still, there are moments, brief, strange moments, when the grandeur of the place catches you off guard. A glimpse of a chandelier from the corner of a hall. A painted cherub grinning down from a ceiling you weren't meant to see. The garden viewed through a laundry window at dusk. There is beauty here, but it is not for you. It floats above your reach like perfume rising from hot skin. You are meant to breathe it in, not touch it. Your hands stay dry and chapped. You learn to keep them behind your back when waiting. You learn the rhythm of bells. 1 for summoning, 2 for urgency, 3 for embarrassment. You hear the bells constantly now, all ringing for someone, somewhere, never for you. You are a soundless thing in a very noisy place. And still, somehow, you feel the pressure of being watched. Always watched, not for your worth, just for your errors. The night before your first real assignment, a senior maid pulls you aside and hands you a small glass jar. Rouge, thick, red, and sharp-smelling. Your new mistress expects you to be prompt. She says, not meeting your eye. She rings at first light. Be waiting outside her door, not beside it, not around the corner. Outside. With this. You nod. You understand. Or at least you know you must pretend to. And the next morning, before the sky is fully light, before you even know the woman's name, you are already standing in the hallway, hands trembling slightly around the little glass jar, trying not to breathe too loudly. You are not a servant yet, not officially, not until she sees you. The bell rings, and you do not wait for permission to move. That morning begins your first day of real labor, and it does not pause once it begins. The toilette is a ceremony. You are not the center of it. You are not even an acknowledged participant. You are a hand reaching out with a comb, a cloth, a ribbon. You do not make eye contact. You do not speak unless addressed, which you are not. Your new mistress speaks to others around you. her lady's maid, her cousin, her hairdresser, even her dog, but never to you. She refers to you only once, when she asks someone else, "Is the new girl the one from the provinces?" No one answers, and she does not press. The toilette lasts over an hour. There are cosmetics to be arranged in perfect rows, perfumes to uncork, silk to be fluffed just so. You observe it all without speaking, without blinking too much, without moving unless instructed. When the marquise lifts her arms, you're expected to know whether she needs her lace sleeves or her fan. You're expected to know what is missing from the tray, even though you are not the one who said it. The older maid guiding you gives no instructions, only looks. Disapproving when you hesitate, more disapproving when you do not. Afterward, you're sent to the laundry cellars, which feel more like a punishment than a posting. You spend the next 3 hours scrubbing petticoats with water so cold it numbs your fingers. The soap is gritty and smells faintly of sour milk. The room steams with the breath of other maids bent over basins. No one speaks unless necessary. The floors are damp and pitted from years of use. The linens seem endless. You wash, rinse, wring, and hang until your arms ache and your nails soften at the edges. One girl passes out from the heat. No one stops working. Your afternoons become a series of silent errands. You fetch perfumes from the stores and are scolded if you take the wrong scent. You refill the queen's cosmetic jars with mixtures you're told never to spill. You carry trays, folded cloths, curled wigs, and bowls of leeches, for God knows what. You learn to knock with your knuckles, just hard enough to be heard, but never hard enough to annoy. When waiting, you do not lean against the walls. You stand with your back straight, hands clasped behind you, eyes fixed nowhere in particular. There is a rhythm to it all, silent, relentless, exacting. You begin to mark time not in hours, but in duties. After the laundry comes the powder. After the powder comes the silver polishing. After the silver comes the toilette rounds, emptying the little porcelain bowls tucked behind damask curtains and undercarved chairs. No one talks about what you're cleaning. No one acknowledges what's in the bowl. You hold your breath, grip the basin, and do your job. The nobles do not notice you unless you make a mistake. That is the only rule that matters. You dress noble women who never learn your name. You kneel on embroidered rugs, your knees going numb while you tighten corset laces and smooth hems. The lace tears in your hands sometimes, too fine to be real, too fragile to survive washing. When it does, you hide it, mend it, and pray it isn't discovered. You wipe rouge from gilded mirrors with cloths that are not supposed to leave streaks, though no one tells you how not to leave them. You carry pails of hot water up 5 flights of stairs. Your arms tremble constantly now, though you've learned to hide it. Your body becomes both tool and liability. Your back bends without thinking. Your hands grow calloused and pink from washing and carrying. The skin under your nails turns raw. Your hair, always tucked beneath your cap, begins to itch. You know you have lice. Everyone does. But if you scratch too obviously, someone might notice, and you might be reassigned. You don't know whether that would be better or worse. The kitchens are filthier, the stables colder, the scullery more punishing. You tell yourself that where you are is tolerable. Then you tell yourself to stop telling yourself anything. The palace is beautiful, yes, but its beauty has weight. It presses down on you like too many blankets in summer. The velvet hangs heavy. The candles drip slowly. The walls shine, but the cracks are starting to show. Behind the silk curtains and polished gold, there are smells you can't name. Mildew, spoiled meat, overripe perfume clinging to sweat. The queen's chambers always smell like violets, but underneath that, there's a trace of vinegar and something that reminds you of illness. You keep your head down. You wipe what you can. You tell yourself it's your imagination. No one teaches you what to say if you're spoken to. On your 4th day, a duchess you do not recognize asks you whether her bodice is too tight. You freeze. You don't know whether you're supposed to answer. She stares at you until the senior maid hurries in, murmurs something charming and vague, and sends you out of the room. You are sent to sweep a hallway that does not need sweeping. Later, the senior maid tells you in clipped tones, servants who speak without being charming are worse than those who speak without being asked. You nod. You think about that for longer than you should. The other girls don't talk much. When they do, it's in whispers while folding linens or fetching water. You learn that some of them have been here since they were 9. One was born in the palace. None of them expect to rise. This is not the theater of upward mobility. This is a slow drowning. You become someone who lives in corners, in shadows, in pauses. You are not from the provinces anymore. You are not from anywhere. You are a function, a posture, a pressed pleat. There are moments when you forget the day. You stop knowing whether it's Tuesday or Sunday. The bells ring, but they all sound the same now. You wake in the dark. You sleep in the dark. The time in between is filled with orders, gestures, cloth, scent, silence. You no longer smell the perfumes you carry. You no longer hear the footmen when they shout. Your mind folds inward. You catch yourself humming songs from home and stop immediately, afraid it might offend the drapes. Sometimes you're allowed to attend the queen's outer chambers, not to serve her directly, but to deliver items to her inner circle. The queen herself never looks at you, but you see her. She is thinner than the paintings suggest. Her skin is pale, but her cheeks are too red. Her eyes drift as though she is only partially awake. She sits among women who laugh too loudly and smile too quickly. Once, she drops her handkerchief, and you are the one who picks it up. She does not thank you. She does not look at you. But for a moment, you smell her perfume up close. Orange blossom and something acrid beneath. You do not forget it. In the evenings when your work is done, you crawl into your cot with aching limbs and a stomach that never quite feels full. The attic is damp. The straw pokes through the mattress. You no longer weep when you lie down. You simply close your eyes and wait for the next bell. That is your life now. Waiting for orders. Waiting for scolding. Waiting for nothing. And then one evening, as you're kneeling on the rug in your mistress's chamber, carefully scrubbing at the hem of a gown she insists was stained by a jealous rival, you hear something new. 2 footmen speaking too close to the door. Their voices just low enough to make you strain to hear them. One mutters, "They're at it again." Rioting. The other snorts. Overbred this time. There's a pause. Then, quieter. They're saying someone got shot. Your hands pause. The cloth sags in your fingers, but you say nothing. You are not supposed to hear. You are not supposed to think. You dip the cloth back into the bowl and continue scrubbing. The next morning, the footmen's voices still echo in your head. You don't speak of what you heard, not even to the girl who sleeps beside you and occasionally lends you her hair ribbon when no one's looking. But something changes. Not in the palace itself, which remains blindingly bright and absurdly composed, but in the way people walk. The rhythm of the halls is off now. Servants move a little faster. Valets flinch a little harder when spoken to. Conversations pause more frequently, eyes flicking toward doorways and corridors before resuming in careful tones. Rumors arrive without names. You hear of grain shipments delayed, of carts overturned by angry crowds, of a baker hanged for hiding flour under his child's cradle. At first, it's all secondhand, filtered through a kitchen boy's muttering or a laundress's hissed aside. But it spreads, and not slowly. The palace may be gilded, but gossip travels faster than light through marble. By the end of the week, someone swears they saw a pamphlet hidden behind the statue of Apollo in the Eastern Gallery. A drawing of the queen with fangs, her head in a basket, her dog licking blood from the floor. You don't know what the word libelle means yet, but you know the drawings are not meant to be flattering. You also know they aren't allowed. A junior valet is dismissed without warning, and the only explanation anyone hears is that he asked too many questions about bread. That's enough. People begin to look over their shoulders more. Even the ones who used to laugh too loudly and gossip too freely. You start to see that fear is not always loud. Sometimes it wears silk and powder and curtsies beautifully. Still, Versailles plays its part. The queen hosts a masked ball that same week. There are fireworks over the garden, music that spills through the glass like smoke, and guests in feathered masks that cost more than your family earns in a year. You catch glimpses of them from the service passage, laughing too hard, drunk on spiced wine and their own self-importance. One countess passes you in the corridor and jokes, "Let them eat cake," to no one in particular. She finds it very funny. Her companion less so. He glances back at you, then looks away quickly. That's when you know it's true. They're afraid. but not of you, of something coming. The queen appears unchanged, though you've never seen her closely enough to say what she might look like when vulnerable. From the edges of her public rituals, she seems composed, aloof, serene, even bored. You wonder whether she knows what's being whispered about her, whether anyone has dared to tell her, whether she would care if they did. There's a strange emptiness to her stillness. It doesn't feel like arrogance. Not exactly. It feels more like someone who has convinced herself that the world is only what happens inside a mirror. Behind the scenes, the staff begins to shrink. Not officially, of course. No announcements are made, but people vanish. A kitchen girl you passed every day on the stairs doesn't return from her day off. A footman who flirted with the chambermaids is suddenly replaced by someone older and quieter. No one explains. You learn not to ask. You learn to watch the space where someone used to stand and pretend not to notice its emptiness. It becomes easier with time. It always does. One evening, you catch your reflection in a hallway mirror and pause, startled. Your posture has changed. Your eyes are narrower. You look like someone who's waiting for a slap that hasn't come yet. You press a hand to your stomach, surprised to find it hollow. You can't remember the last time you felt truly hungry or truly full. Meals blur together now. So do days. Your feet know which corridor to turn down, even when your thoughts have wandered. You're beginning to operate by muscle alone. You're careful not to ask questions. That's the most important thing. One girl asks what happened to the baker in town and is reassigned to the laundry wing 2 hours later. Another asks why the queen doesn't eat bread anymore and gets slapped across the face by a matron. You learn quickly. What you don't say can't be punished. What you don't know can't betray you. You grow quieter, not because you have less to say, but because you've learned the palace has no room for noise it didn't invent. Sometimes, when delivering linens to the upper floors, you pass the windows overlooking the front drive. You start to see more carriages leaving than arriving. Noble families packing up under the guise of fresh air or country retreats. But they don't send their servants back. They don't leave forwarding instructions. They just go. A senior footman jokes that they're off to polish their heads for the guillotine, and then laughs too hard at his own words. No one else joins in. Still, the rituals continue. There are receptions, afternoon teas, hairdressings, dress fittings. The queen's ladies attend her with the same practiced elegance as always, but now their fans flutter more. Their smiles stick too long. One bursts into tears during a card game and blames it on nerves. Another snaps at a maid for misplacing a powder puff, then apologizes so quickly it feels like a performance. There's something brittle about all of them now, like a vase already cracked, holding together only out of habit. Your own tasks begin to shift. A supervisor pulls you aside one morning and tells you you've been noticed. Not by a noble, of course, God forbid, but by someone higher among the servants. Your hands are quick, she says. Your posture correct. Your tongue blessedly still. You are, she says, the right kind of invisible. You are told that you will now assist with deliveries to the queen's household. Not the queen herself, but her chambermaids, her dresses, the inner machinery that keeps her spotless and fragrant. It's not a promotion anyone celebrates, but you know what it means. You will be closer to the queen's world now, closer to the lace and powder and the soft-spoken lies, closer to the center of the illusion Versailles works so hard to preserve. You will carry the trays and boxes that feed her rituals. You will enter rooms you've only glimpsed from the edge, and you will be expected to see nothing. Say nothing. Remember nothing. You nod when they tell you this. You're good at that now. The matron who gives you your new instructions does not smile, but she does not scowl either. She tells you to report to the linen staging room near the queen's wings starting the next morning. You will bring folded cloths, embroidered slippers, perfume sachets. You will arrive early, before the doors open. You will not be late. You return to your cot that evening and stare at the wooden slats above your head. It's the same room, the same musty air, the same threadbare blanket. But you feel different. Not better, just noticed. And in Versailles, that can be a blessing or a death sentence. You do not yet know which. You arrive early your first morning in the queen's wing, as instructed. The hallway is warmer than others in the palace, as though the candles here burn longer. A soft, Perfumed haze lingers in the air, like someone's been trying to smother the smell of damp fabric and old stone. You are told not to knock. The queen is never summoned by noise. You wait quietly outside the linen staging chamber until the senior maid appears and waves you in with a flick of her wrist. No words, just movement. That is how things are done here. Your work is not glamorous. You carry folded cloths, slippers, fans, hairpins, scent sachets. You are not yet permitted inside the queen's rooms. You wait at the border between spectacle and scaffolding. You are told to walk softly, breathe less, and if possible, vanish entirely when not in use. You keep your eyes low and your hands steady. You hear the rustle of silk through the door and try not to imagine her. You try not to imagine anything at all, but of course you do. The first time you glimpse her, it is through a partially open door, just wide enough to reveal the corner of a vanity table and the blur of her face in the mirror. Pale, expressionless, utterly still. She is seated, but it feels like watching a statue being arranged rather than a woman preparing for her day. Someone dusts powder across her forehead while two others argue over earrings. She does not react. She doesn't even blink. Her stillness is not serenity. It is detachment. It is the calm of someone who has retreated so far inward that she can no longer hear the room around her. The queen is not what you expected. The pamphlets whispered about in the laundry rooms show her with blood in her teeth and flames in her hair, riding a man like a horse. You expected something loud, something vulgar, something wicked. What you see instead is small and strangely childlike, not in innocence, but in the way she seems to float through rooms as though everything is being done to her rather than by her. Her eyes move slowly, and when they rest on people, it feels accidental. You're not sure she notices most of them. You're not sure she notices herself. Her toilette is unlike anything you've seen. It's not just dressing. It's theater, ritual. There are 30 people in the room at times, some with purpose, most without. Ladies of rank stand along the walls, waiting their turn to hand the queen her gloves or her shift. Courtiers drift in and out to watch her being brushed and curled, like she's part of a sacred ceremony. She sits mostly still while others arrange her. No one seems to know who is in charge, but the whole thing unfolds with terrifying smoothness. You once saw a priest prepare communion with less reverence. You are not part of this circle. You stand just outside it, holding a tray of combs or a box of powder, waiting to be summoned, and silently hoping you won't be. The other girls who serve in the queen's apartments do not speak much. They've grown used to the strange rhythms. One tells you to avoid looking directly into the queen's eyes unless instructed. Another warns you never to be the first or last to move in a group. Middle, she says. Safe in the middle. You take the advice seriously. The queen speaks rarely, but when she does, it's soft and often strange. Once, while her maid adjusted the pearl brooch on her bodice, she murmured, "Do you think a pearl ever feels drowned?" No one answered. They never do. Her voice doesn't ask questions so much as release them, like dandelion seeds into the air. You begin to think she might not expect answers at all. Only agreement. Only silence. Only the sound of obedience. Despite this, she is not cruel. Not directly. You've seen cruelty. Sharp, personal, deliberate. The queen's is different. It's more like absence. The kind of coldness that forgets your name. Not because it disdains you, but because it never thought to learn it. Once, she drops a bracelet, and you're the one who retrieves it. She does not thank you. She does not look at you, but you feel her eyes settle vaguely in your direction, as though trying to recall where she's seen your face. It's not dislike. It's not like anything at all. You place the bracelet on the table and step away without being told. The other servants interpret her moods like weather, reading slight changes in tone, in posture, in the angle of her eyebrows. They gossip in the quietest way possible, muttering behind fans and buckets and folded linens. They say she weeps in her sleep. They say she plucks her eyebrows when anxious, then lies about why they're missing. They say she eats sugared violets until she's sick, then drinks vinegar to feel clean. You don't know what's true. You only know that her presence makes the air feel thinner. When she enters a room, everyone breathes more carefully. It isn't all dignity and poise. You've seen the queen yawn mid-conversation, twist her ring when bored, let her stockings roll down just enough that the maids have to fuss over her knees. You've seen her pick at her fingernails and smile at nothing. These are the moments when she seems most human, and yet, even then, she doesn't seem like someone who belongs to herself. She's always surrounded, always managed, always arranged. Even her boredom has a shape someone else designed. Once a week, she's presented with a tray of cosmetics and perfumes and asked to choose what she will wear. She never chooses. She waves her hand, and someone else selects for her. No one is thanked. No one is blamed. You begin to wonder what her voice would sound like if she raised it. If she ever shouted. You can't imagine it. You're not sure anyone can. Your proximity to her world changes how others treat you. The kitchen girls ask questions you don't answer. The linen staff gives you a slightly wider berth. You aren't more respected, just more feared, as though standing near the queen means you might bring something contagious with you. You want to tell them that being near her doesn't mean closeness. It means the opposite. She is not a person you get near. She is a person you orbit, silently, from a safe and predetermined distance. And yet, something strange happens over time. You begin to sense when she's nearby before she enters a room. You begin to anticipate her gestures. You begin to fold her gloves before being asked. You begin to know, without knowing how, when to open the window, when to pull the curtain, when to retreat. You become quietly useful. And that is the closest thing to power someone like you is ever allowed. One morning, as the queen prepares to leave for her promenade, you are sent to deliver her fan. It is carved ivory with painted cherubs and a tassel that took 3 weeks to knot. You step forward with the correct bow, hand it to the chambermaid, who places it in the queen's hand. For once, she does not look past you. She glances in your direction, not quite at you, but near enough that your spine stiffens, and says softly, "Thank you." You're not sure if she meant it for you. You're not sure if she meant it at all. After the queen thanks you, if she did, you don't speak of it. You don't even allow yourself to think about it too long. It's safer that way. Words once said aloud become rumors, and rumors become accusations. And accusations do not often end with clarity. They end with reassignment, or dismissal, or vanishing altogether. So you say nothing, and instead, you carry on with your new duties, your back a little straighter, your movements a little more cautious. Not proud, just precise. It is precision, after all, that keeps you safe. You've learned to navigate the strange social architecture of Versailles, not the noble's world. That's unknowable even from within it. But the structures beneath their lives, the invisible scaffolding that props up powdered faces and jeweled silence. The palace is governed by rules so dense and delicately balanced that even those enforcing them don't fully understand where they begin or end. You simply follow what everyone else follows. And when in doubt, you stop moving entirely until someone of higher rank tells you to proceed. It's not a life, but it is survival. Rules govern everything. Who may sit? Who may speak? Who may enter a room first? Who may laugh? And at what volume? There are gestures that mean approval and gestures that mean exile. A glance can raise a reputation or destroy it. The nobility live inside a world of delicate fiction, one where proximity to the queen's elbow is more valuable than a lifetime of work. You've seen women cry over the order in which they are permitted to hand the queen her gloves. You've seen grown men bend themselves into flourishes so elaborate they nearly fall over. It would be ridiculous if it weren't so deadly serious. As a servant, you're not bound by the etiquette of nobility, but only because you're beneath it. That comes with its own prison. You're not forbidden from speaking in courtly language. You simply aren't expected to speak at all. You do not bow a certain way. You bow always, and to everyone. You do not enter a room on cue. You enter when no one else will see you do it. You don't need a title to feel crushed by protocol. You only need to be near enough to feel its weight, without ever having the right to shift it. It is easy to forget that nobles are not gods. They bleed, they tremble, they rot, and they gossip just like everyone else. But they do it with powdered cheeks and lace cuffs. You watch them destroy each other with polite smiles and faint praise. A single comment about someone's uneven curls can ruin a reputation. A misplaced rumor about someone's bastard cousin can end an engagement. You watch women laughing into their fans while scanning the room for social danger. You watch men pretend not to panic when their invitation to dinner doesn't arrive. And you learn quickly and absolutely that silence is the safest currency of all. Among the servants, gossip flows more freely, but it's rarely weaponized. It's more like a survival instinct, an early warning system for shifts in the weather. You hear about who's fallen out of favor, who's been caught in the wrong corridor. You hear whispers of affairs, debts, and secret pregnancies. But you also hear practical things. Which cook will slip you crusts of bread? Which butler is cruel? Which hallway always floods after rain? Knowledge is life. Even when it's useless, it's still something you can hold when everything else slips through your fingers. Meals are brief and plain. You eat standing when you can, squatting when you must, usually in a corner or near a half-swept stair. Cold soup, a chunk of bread, if you're lucky, maybe a scrap of fruit gone soft with age. The scullery girls sit near you when they can. They're louder than the others, less afraid of being overheard. You learn that most of them have never seen the queen, and most don't care to. What matters is not the woman, one says, picking at a blister on her heel, but the machine that surrounds her. She could disappear tomorrow, and we'd still be scrubbing the walls. The riots reach your ears before they reach the gates. You hear them first from a kitchen boy, breathless and soot-smudged, who says a bakery was looted and a guard trampled. Then from a dresser who whispers about dead men on the cobblestones, mouths open like fish. The details shift with each telling. More dead, fewer dead, women leading the charge, children crushed in the crowd. You don't know what's true, and you know better than to ask. But something inside you tightens with each repetition. Not fear, not yet. Just the sense that the air itself has changed. Upstairs, nothing changes. The queen still dresses for dinner. The orchestra still plays in the gallery. The nobles still hold their fans and flirt and wager over cards while sipping wine sweet enough to cover the taste of old fruit. They speak in careful tones and avoid the word Paris, as if it might curse the room. They smile wider. They laugh harder. Their performances grow more desperate, as though if they clap loudly enough, the world outside won't remember they exist. One afternoon, while delivering a fresh lace collar to a lady-in-waiting, you pass a group of nobles rehearsing a play. It's a comedy, something about mistaken identity and runaway marriages. They laugh at all the wrong moments. One man forgets his lines and is mocked so viciously you almost flinch. Later, the same man vomits in the corridor and pretends it was the oysters. No one believes him. No one says otherwise. You begin to see the palace differently. The shine is still there, but now you notice the cracks. The chandelier in the queen's receiving room wobbles slightly, the chains straining with age. The curtains near the north wing haven't been cleaned in months, and smell faintly of mildew. A rat scurries through the library, and no one moves to catch it. Decay hides behind perfume and silk, but it is there, creeping in like rot behind paint. You learn to measure the moods of the house by the number of candles lit at dusk. More candles mean more fear, less darkness, less time to think. The nobles begin to stay up later. They drink more. They eat less. The queen's ladies apply rouge more thickly now, perhaps to mask the pallor, perhaps to feel in control of something. The powder in the air makes you cough, but you hide it. No one wants to be reminded of the body beneath the costume. You are useful. You are still. You move like a whisper. You hand things before being asked, and disappear before being thanked. That is your role, and you have grown into it like a second skin. You stop thinking about how long you've been here. You stop marking the seasons. Versailles does not have seasons. It has rituals, and hours, and bells. The gardens may bloom or wilt, but inside, everything is meant to stay exactly the same, even as it changes. Then one evening, you're asked to deliver a tray to the salon of a minor nobleman whose name you've never had reason to remember. His room is dim, the curtains drawn against a setting sun that casts amber light across the floor. You knock. No answer. You push the door gently and step inside. He is seated in the corner, facing the hearth, though there is no fire. In one hand, he holds a letter. In the other, a taper. You watch as he lowers the flame, and the parchment curls black in his fingers. He does not notice you, or if he does, he pretends not to. His shoulders shake slightly. You realize slowly that he is crying. You place the tray on a table and step back. Quiet. Invisible. You close the door behind you. Versailles grows colder despite the candles. The halls are still bright, the sconces still full, but the warmth has gone out of the place. It's not the season, not exactly. The cold you feel is something older than weather. Something that moves behind walls and beneath floors, just out of sight. The kind of cold that seeps through your shoes even when the marble is dry. The kind that follows you up staircases, into kitchens, into prayer. The kind that doesn't want to leave. The windows fog more often now. The stone beneath the tapestries feels damp to the touch. The corners of corridors hold a smell you can't quite name. Not smoke, not mildew. Something fainter, something like forgotten sweat. The nobility still parade through their appointed routes, still powdered and perfumed. Still rehearsing the lines of a play no one believes in anymore. But the edges have begun to fray. The paint peels beneath the gold. The carpets curl at the seams. A maid in the west wing reports mushrooms growing behind the paneling. She is laughed at. No one investigates. You start to notice it more in the fabrics. Lace that crumbles under gentle hands. Velvet that smells faintly of decay. A noblewoman snaps at you for bringing her a gown full of holes. But you know the holes weren't there when you carried it. Something got to it in the night. Mice, maybe. Moths, more likely. You check the other garments in the wardrobe. 3 more show signs of chewing. You say nothing. You sew what you can. You burn what you cannot. No one wants to hear about vermin. Not here. Not now. The kitchens are worse. The meat arrives late and smells sour. Spices are poured on thick, not to flavor, but to disguise. You hear the scullery girls arguing with the cook over a duck that's already turned. He waves them off. They'll eat it, he says. They always do. And they do. The courtiers gnaw at gray meat and smile through grease-streaked lips. No one complains. Complaining would mean admitting they noticed. And noticing now is dangerous. Still, the banquets continue. The musicians play. The wine flows. The dancers twirl beneath chandeliers that glitter even as their wires rust. You watch nobles scratch discreetly beneath the table. Powdered wigs don't protect against lice. In fact, they may be part of the problem. You see one duke, an older man with trembling hands, remove his wig behind a folding screen. His scalp is raw, red, and weeping. His valet powders it anyway. The smell is unbearable. You turn away before you're seen. The mice grow bolder. You see them at night, darting across the floor of the queen's antechamber. You hear them in the walls while folding linens. One leaves droppings in the silver drawer. You try to clean it, but the tarnish won't lift. You report it to the butler. He tells you to say nothing. It's beneath the queen's dignity to know what's beneath her floorboards. You nod. Of course it is. You start to recognize the sound of chewing in the silence. Not the sound of mouths at table, but the soft, relentless gnawing of creatures in the plaster. You wonder how many there are. Dozens? Hundreds? Do they have names for you the way the nobles do? Do they watch from cracks in the ceiling as the court collapses in slow motion? You catch one nibbling a stray curl of ribbon in a salon. It looks at you with small dark eyes and doesn't run, just twitches its nose, then vanishes under the baseboard, quick as breath. You begin to wake scratching. It starts at your scalp, then your arms, then your neck. The girl who shares your cot doesn't mention it, but you see her doing the same. There are no delousing orders, no combs, no instructions. You're not important enough for remedies. You learn to ignore it, to bleed discreetly, to wash your linens when no one's looking, and pretend they're not infested again by nightfall. When you walk past the queen's ladies, you see the mites too, but always delicately, always beneath a sleeve or a fan. The perfume grows heavier, as if it could smother what's already spreading. There's a new scent in rotation now, some mix of lavender, orange blossom, and crushed cloves. But it only adds to the thickness in the air. The corridors smell like illness masked with candy, a place trying to disguise its decomposition with sweetness. You gag sometimes, quietly. You've seen a footman vomit in the servants' hall and claim it was just nerves. No one argues. Everyone agrees it's best not to look too closely. One night, while assisting with the setting of the supper table in the lesser dining room, you see a rat fall from the chandelier into a soup tureen. There is a moment of complete, ringing silence. Then the steward clears his throat, removes the tureen, and snaps for another to be brought. No one screams. No one gasps. The nobles shift slightly in their seats, adjusting their gloves. One countess covers her nose with a lace handkerchief. Someone makes a joke you can't quite hear. The meal continues. After that, the chandeliers are checked more often, though only by lower staff. You are not allowed to touch them, but you're allowed to clean the floor beneath them thoroughly, in case anything else falls. You don't ask what anything else means. No one does. The queen remains untouched by all of this, at least outwardly. Her face is still pale. Her movements still distant. But you notice her coughing more. Not dramatically, just little sharp sounds into a perfumed cloth. Her ladies pretend not to notice. One of them starts carrying smelling salts everywhere. You hear someone whisper that the queen fainted during a fitting. Another says she merely sat too fast. Either way, no one corrects the record. You start to suspect the queen has become a symbol, not a person. And symbols are never allowed to wilt. You continue your work. You keep your head down. The layers of rot grow deeper, but your instructions remain the same. Polish the silver. Fold the linens. Wipe the rouge pots. Ignore the stains. Ignore the smell. Ignore the scratching. Sometimes, when you're alone in the linen closet, you place your hand on the wall and feel the movement inside. You imagine the walls are hollow, that the mice are in control now, that they've taken over quietly from the inside out. You've heard no news from Paris in days. That's probably by design. The gossip has gone quiet, which is its own kind of alarm. You catch glimpses of servants huddling in corners, but they stop talking when you approach. The noblemen are more irritable. Their wigs are crooked, their shoes unpolished, their words sharp. One slaps a footman hard enough to draw blood. Another breaks a chair leg during a card game and demands it be replaced immediately, even though there are no spare chairs in that style. You fetch one anyway. It doesn't match. No one notices. You begin to feel that Versailles is no longer hiding the cracks. It is becoming them. The grandeur remains, but only in outline. The shape of splendor, the shadow of power. The light still dances across marble, but the marble chips if touched too firmly. The curtains still sway gracefully in the breeze, but they carry the scent of mildew wherever they move. You once dreamed of rising through these halls. Now you dream of fire swallowing them whole. And then, just before supper one evening, you are handed a small parcel and told to deliver it to the queen's dressing room. You do as you're told. The senior maid takes it without looking and places it on the vanity. "Open it," she says, and you untie the string with careful fingers. Inside are 3 pairs of the queen's gloves. White, embroidered, and wrong. They smell not of roses, not of lavender. They reek of vinegar and something underneath. Something sharp, bitter, metallic. You are ordered to clean them with rose water. The gloves don't come clean, not fully. You soak them. You dab them. You sponge them gently with rose water and linen cloths, but the smell clings. It fades slightly, settles deeper, takes on a floral edge, but never leaves. You dry them by the hearth and pray no one notices. When they are returned to the queen's dressing table, no comment is made. That is how most things work now. Everyone notices. No one says anything. Silence has become the common language, obedient, brittle, and rehearsed. In the days that follow, the air in the palace tightens. The whispers that used to float between linen shelves and under stairwells begin to take on shape. Not stories, not names, just a shift in tone. The girls in the attic no longer whisper about lovers or dresses or which footman has nice hands. They speak in short, clipped bursts now. Someone's cousin hasn't written back from Paris. Someone's brother says soldiers marched past the bakery. Someone else, a kitchen maid, leaves without saying goodbye and is never mentioned again. Tension settles in the walls like soot. No one announces anything, but the guards double at the gates. You see them as you pass with your morning deliveries. More men, new uniforms, faces you don't recognize. They stand straighter now, but their hands tremble more. One of them snaps at a footman for stepping too close. Another refuses to speak at all. They've come from the city. You can see it in their eyes. That haunted, braced expression. You've seen it in animals before a storm. The nobility feel it too, though they're better at pretending. At least most are. A few still laugh too loudly. Still decorate their wigs with flowers. Still flirt with the queen's pages like nothing has changed. But even among them, the cracks are visible. A marquis nearly drops his wine glass when a tray falls in the hall. A duchess sobs during her toilette, then blames it on excessive lace. The courtier who once told a joke about cake and peasants now whispers his punchlines only after checking the corridor. No one laughs quite as freely. No one lingers quite as long. Some nobles begin to leave quietly, without announcement. At first, it's the ones with estates in the countryside, the sort who can vanish under the pretense of health or harvest. Then come the quieter exits. A carriage rolls out before dawn. A valet weeps while loading trunks. A lady's maid returns from an errand to find her mistress gone without a word. No goodbyes. No explanations. Just absences. The rooms are left tidy. The perfume still fresh, as though no one ever lived there at all. Others arrive in their place, but thinly, but not in the usual way. These are not glittering visitors from other courts. They are family members, associates, those summoned in urgency. They come from Paris, and they do not speak of what they've seen. You watch them descend from their carriages with pale faces and clenched jaws. They do not bring laughter. They bring tension. They step over thresholds as though unsure the floor will hold. You overhear one noblewoman whisper, "It was a mistake to wait," before disappearing into the queen's chamber. The queen herself begins to fade. Not in presence. She still performs her rituals, still dresses, still walks the gardens with her ladies. But in substance, her face looks thinner. Her gowns hang differently. Her eyes drift more than before, and not just in distraction. She seems to be searching for something she can't name. During one fitting, she holds a pearl comb in her hand and stares at it so long the hairdresser has to cough to get her attention. "It looks heavy," she says, almost to herself. Everything feels heavy now. The king is seen less and less. You pass his chambers sometimes while delivering linens. They're quiet. Too quiet. No music. No movement. His pages speak in hushed tones. One says he's unwell. Another says he's occupied. A third says nothing at all, just shrugs and disappears behind the door. You realize that the king has become a concept. Present in theory, absent in practice. You begin to forget what his voice sounds like. But the musicians still play. If anything, they play louder. There are concerts every week now. Some private, some ostentatiously public. Music pours through the corridors like perfume, coating everything in a thin sheen of artificial beauty. The melodies are cheerful, frantic, insistent. You recognize the tone. It's the sound of people trying to distract themselves. One violinist breaks a string mid-performance and keeps playing, his face soaked in sweat. The audience applauds anyway. You're sent more often to clean and used rooms. Entire wings of the palace are emptying. Furniture is draped. Curtains are drawn. Still, the routines are upheld. Tables are laid. Chairs dusted. Linens pressed. You spend 3 hours setting a table for a dinner that is never served. When you return to clear it, nothing has been touched but the wine. A single goblet, half empty, red, staining the rim like a mouth that never finished its story. The servants carry their own kind of tension. No one speaks of what they've heard, but everyone has heard something. You begin to see it in how they hold themselves. Stiffer, tighter, heads lowered, even when no one's watching. Someone drops a pitcher in the queen's chambers and nearly faints from fear before anyone can react. You help sweep the shards and feel your hands shaking the whole time, though you were nowhere near when it happened. That's the thing about fear here. It doesn't need to touch you directly. It seeps through the seams. Gossip is no longer entertainment. It's triage. You listen not to be amused, but to prepare. What streets are safe? Which gate guards will let you through? Which noble families have fled to England? No one plans aloud, but you feel the edges of contingency forming in the silence. You begin to memorize escape routes you don't expect to use. You begin to count candles. You begin to save crusts of bread in a pocket you never used before. You don't know what you're preparing for. but you know it's coming. The queen begins to speak less. Her orders come through intermediaries now. You're told she is tired, that her nerves are unsettled, that the new rouge disagrees with her. You are handed her slippers one morning and notice that the silk is unraveling at the toe. The maid who takes them shrugs. They'll last a little longer, she says. You wonder whether she means the slippers or something else entirely. Then one afternoon, as you're folding napkins in the linen hall, you feel it. A stillness, not silence. There's always some sound in Versailles, but a shift in tone. The conversations die more quickly. The air feels heavier. A page runs past without explaining. A steward murmurs something to the matron and then leaves, pale and stiff-backed. No one tells you anything. No one needs to. That night in the attic, someone whispers the words. The Bastille has fallen. No one speaks afterward. The phrase just hangs in the air, like wood smoke after a fire. It's not a proclamation, not a command, not even a warning. It's just something you now know. The fall of the Bastille doesn't arrive with fanfare. It arrives in silence. A knowledge shared between glances. A weight that settles in the corners of every room. No bells are rung. No speech is made. The queen does not retreat. The king does not emerge. The palace continues as it always has. But something in its rhythm slips. Something fundamental goes crooked. And once it does, nothing quite lines up again. Days begin to blur together. Morning spills into afternoon without distinction. The bells ring late or not at all. Meals are delayed. Deliveries forgotten. Once you find yourself walking the wrong corridor for nearly 10 minutes before realizing you're retracing steps you'd already taken. It isn't just exhaustion. It's dislocation. The court feels unstuck in time, as if their silks are trying to continue in one century while the rest of France has moved into another. The palace becomes a performance without an audience. The nobility who remain dress as though they are still being watched, but with less effort. Powder fades from their hair. Jewels are swapped for ribbon. One countess arrives at dinner in the same gown 3 nights in a row. No one says anything. You hear a valet whisper that a fabric order from Paris was stopped en route. The driver turned back, he says, eyes lowered. Said he'd rather take his chances with the wolves than the crowd. And still the queen hosts recitals. She sits in the same seat, nods at the same moments, smiles in the same places. But the musicians look different now. Their hands shake. Their clothes don't fit as neatly. One drops his bow mid-piece and retrieves it with an expression of pure terror. The queen does not react. You stand against the far wall, holding a tray you've already delivered, watching her stare into the middle distance as though she can hear something no one else can. When the harpist finishes, she claps twice, slowly, and then looks down at her lap. You're close enough to see the glisten in her eyes before she blinks it away. You clean more empty rooms than full ones. Suites that once held nobles and their entourages now sit in dusty silence. The sheets are folded, the firewood left untouched. The mirrors grow dull without daily polishing. You begin to feel like you're preparing for ghosts rather than guests. You wipe wine stains off tables where no one sat. You scrape wax from candlesticks no one lit. You air out salons that haven't been entered in days, only to find the window stuck shut and the air heavy with something sour. The kind of smell that clings to velvet long after it's been worn by fear. The nobility who stay behind seem unsure whether to be proud or ashamed of their loyalty. One speaks too boldly about noble endurance and is ignored for the rest of the evening. Another jokes about making his own barricade out of prayer stools and is not invited back to supper. You learn to spot the ones who are close to breaking. They touch their cuffs too often. They stare at nothing during conversation. They repeat themselves. You once see a baroness spend 10 minutes adjusting the same brooch, hands trembling so hard she pins it backward. Small cruelties increase. A chambermaid is slapped for misbuttoning a bodice. A footman is dismissed for failing to bow deeply enough. A page is accused of spying after stumbling into the wrong corridor. He's not seen again. You don't ask where he went. You don't ask anything anymore. Questions have become dangerous. Silence has become not just safety, but decorum. And decorum is all the court has left. The queen speaks less now, though she remains visibly present. She drifts through her appointments with a kind of quiet precision. as though afraid one wrong move will crack the whole performance. Her dresses are still elaborate, but you notice the hems are less meticulously mended, the sleeves looser, the stays softer. You once see a faint stain on her glove. She says nothing about it. Neither does anyone else. She moves through each day like someone preserving a ritual, not because she believes in it, but because it's the only thing she has left. You begin to have dreams, not of home, not of the past, of blood, of crowds, of red cobblestones and shouting. You dream of flames licking the marble arches, of wigs tossed from balconies, of mirrors shattered and echoing nothing. You wake without sound, soaked in sweat, your hands gripping the edge of your cot. You never speak of these dreams, but from the looks on the other girls' faces in the morning, you know they've had them too. Even the palace has grown quieter. The constant hum of movement has dimmed. There are fewer footsteps, fewer voices, fewer orders barked in the corridors. The halls stretch out longer than before, more hollow. You walk them like a whisper, unsure whether the sound behind you is another servant or your own echo. You startle more easily now. When a window slams, your shoulders seize. When a dish crashes, your ears ring. You begin to expect a scream that never comes. The nobles fill the silence with a rehearsed cheer. You hear them laugh. Not real laughter, but the kind that's built from obligation. Giddy, brittle, urgent. They complement each other more aggressively now. You look radiant. This fabric is divine. You must tell me who made your shoes. They're desperate to keep the mask in place, to keep the old world stitched together with flattery and desperation. But even they know it's slipping. They wear more rouge, more powder, as if their own flesh is no longer convincing. Then the Countess throws a ribbon. It happens during a fitting. You're in the room, helping prepare a new sash for her waist. The seamstress is nervous. She always is now, and offers 2 colors. The Countess chooses blue. You pass it to her. She frowns. Not that shade, she says. The seamstress apologizes and presents the other. The Countess throws the first ribbon to the floor with such force it startles everyone. Do you want me to look like a corpse? She snaps. Then she slaps the maid holding the mirror, hard enough to draw a gasp. Silence follows. You all stare. The Countess gathers herself, smooths her bodice, and leaves without another word. No apology, no excuse. Just the sound of her shoes tapping too fast against the floor. You wonder what she saw in the mirror. You wonder what any of them still see when they look into one. The palace reflects less now. The mirrors have dulled. The polish doesn't hold. The glass fogs more easily. You clean them anyway. It's one of the few tasks you find oddly comforting. The repetition of the motion. The illusion of clarity. You wipe away streaks that reappear the next day. You don't mind. It gives you something to do, something to control, something to fix. And then one afternoon, as you carry a folded gown through the eastern hall, you see her. The noblewoman. You don't know her name. She's never spoken to you. Once she turned her face away when you held a door open for her. Another time she coughed when you passed by with laundry, as though your presence was an odor she could dispel. Now she is sitting on the floor outside her chamber, her wig tilted, one slipper missing, her cheeks streaked with tears. She isn't sobbing delicately. She is weeping, mouth open, face crumpled, the way children do when they've scraped both knees and no one has come to help. Her hands are curled in her lap, like she doesn't know what to do with them. Her shoulders shake. You freeze, not from fear, from uncertainty. You don't know the rule for this. She doesn't look up. You walk past her quietly, the gown pressed to your chest like a shield. The noblewoman in the hallway disappears by morning. Her chamber is cleared. Her name struck from the roster. No one speaks of her. No one mentions the tears, the wig, the way she sat slumped on cold marble like a marionette with its strings cut. You pass her empty room the next day with fresh linens, and are told to store them elsewhere. She's gone, the maid says, without elaboration. She doesn't mean dead, but she might as well. You remain, not because you're loyal, not because you're brave, simply because no one has told you to do otherwise. And in Versailles, absence of instruction is its own kind of directive. You rise before the bell now, out of habit rather than duty. You dress without urgency, because there is nowhere to hurry to. The tasks remain: polishing, folding, dusting, but fewer hands assign them. The matron of your wing no longer gives daily orders. She's rarely seen at all. Her shoes are sometimes visible under her office door, unmoving for hours at a time. Entire wings have fallen silent. Not just quiet, but cavernously still. The laughter, footsteps, idle conversation that once hummed through the palace have faded to a kind of hushed breathing. You find yourself whispering even when alone. The guest rooms are closed. The gallery is dark. The chapel smells of burnt wax and nothing else. You polish silver that no one touches. You draw baths that cool before anyone arrives. You arrange slippers that are never worn on rugs that gather dust in patterns you recognize day to day. Some servants leave, not with ceremony, not with luggage, just quietly. A missing comb, an empty cot, a drawer left half open. The morning after they vanish, no one says a word. You sweep their corners and pretend they were never there. You begin to wonder how many disappearances can be ignored before the palace is empty. You start to count the faces you still recognize in the halls. The number shrinks each week. Others try to leave and fail. One girl from the laundry is caught by the gate, bundled and pale, with her shoes wrapped in cloth so they wouldn't make noise. She's dragged back inside by two guards you've never seen before. She doesn't return to the attic. You never learn where they put her. After that, the whispers grow colder. You stop dreaming of escape, not because you don't want it, but because you no longer believe it's an option. The queen is still here. The king, presumably, though neither is seen often. When they do appear, it's as if they've been cut from some older version of Versailles and pasted into the current one, too sharply defined for the crumbling backdrop. The queen walks slower now. The king does not speak in public. When the queen nods at her courtiers, the movement seems mechanical, like a music box that still turns but has lost its tune. The few remaining nobles hover around her like anxious birds, waiting to see which direction she might fly. Loyalty becomes a whispered virtue. Some speak of staying close to the queen as a mark of honor, a sign of nobility in uncertain times. But even they grow quiet when pressed. A lady-in-waiting tells you one evening, while you're brushing mud from her shoes, that history will reward those who stay. She doesn't sound convinced. Her hands shake as she adjusts her bracelets. Later that night, you hear her retching behind the curtain. The next day, she's gone. You no longer believe in reward. You no longer believe in punishment either. There is no judgment left here, only stillness. Versailles feels like a mausoleum, golden, gleaming, but hollow. The walls echo too easily. The floorboards groan even when empty. You polish doorknobs that open to silence. You fluff pillows still holding the imprint of someone who left 3 weeks ago. You mop a salon where no one has walked since the summer. The damp never quite dries. The air hangs like a curtain no one dares pull back. The routines persist, but they feel theatrical. Each act more brittle than the last. The queen still holds her toilette, but the audience has thinned. The ladies who once elbowed for proximity now wait in silence, powdered and pale, unsure of the lines they're meant to speak. You pass among them like a ghost, unnoticed but necessary. You carry the gloves. You fetch the fan. You refill the powder. No one thanks you. No one meets your eye. Everyone is rehearsing a role no longer required. The palace no longer tries to hide its exhaustion. Mirrors remain unpolished for days. The chandeliers wobble when the wind hits them through cracked panes. The tapestries sag at the corners. You start to see rainwater seeping through the ceiling in places you were once told were too sacred to breathe near. The mice are bolder again. You see one climbing a velvet curtain while a duke pretends not to notice. No one moves to stop it. No one lifts a finger. The silence deepens. It's not just a lack of noise by now. It's the presence of something else. Something watchful. You begin to feel it pressing in at night, when the corridors are empty and your footsteps feel louder than they should. You wake often. You dream of knocking, of doors you're not allowed to open, of letters slipping beneath your cot without signatures. You begin to wonder if history has already moved on, and you've been left behind like an ink blot on a discarded page. Still, you serve. You serve because it is what you were taught, because the body moves even when the mind begins to drift. You fold. You sweep. You wait. You stop thinking about time. You measure your days in the movement of dust, in the droop of roses past their prime. The day it happens, the palace wakes before dawn, but not in the usual way. There is no bell, no routine clatter of trays, no shuffling of slippers on waxed floors. What wakes you is sound, not the orderly kind you've grown used to, but a rising murmur, distant at first, then swelling like a tide pulled by something vast and irreversible. You sit up in your cot and listen. At first it could be wind, but wind doesn't chant. You dress quickly, though there's no order to do so. The others stir around you, confused and silent. No one speaks. You tie your apron with shaking fingers. Something in your body already knows what's coming. It's the same feeling you had when you saw a sheep bolt before a storm. That twitch in the muscle, that flattening of air. You descend the servant stair and see that the hallway is already full of bodies moving too quickly, too quietly, all in different directions. Someone drops a basket. No one picks it up. You reach the corridor near the queen's wing just as the light begins to rise. Not sunlight, not yet, but the first gray wash of morning. You press close to a window and look down across the front courtyard. That's when you see them. Thousands. Not just men, but women too. Barefoot, hunched, wrapped in shawls, shouting words you can't hear but feel. Some carry pitchforks. Others carry banners made from rags. Some hold pots and pans, as if they might use them as drums or weapons or both. The guards at the gate shout orders you can't make out. The courtyard is filling like a basin. There is no formation, no rank, just pressure, just bodies, just rage. You step back from the glass before anyone sees you. You are not meant to be visible today, perhaps not ever again. You don't know what to do, so you return to the linen room. It's the only place that feels familiar. You've spent hours there, folding, stacking, smoothing creases. Now it looks like a storage closet in a theater long since abandoned. The shelves are still full. The floor is clean, but nothing feels safe. You slip into the cupboards where spare sheets are kept, press yourself between muslin and oak, and pull the door almost shut. You sit in the dark and wait. You hear the palace groan. It begins slowly, shouts echoing down stone halls. Footsteps in patterns you do not recognize. Someone screams, "Hi." Human, brief. Then nothing. Then more shouting. Doors slam open. You hear running. Not marching. Not patrolling. Running. Panic has its own rhythm. And this is it. From the crack in the cupboard door, you see the light change. Brighter now. Mid-morning. You hear something shatter. Glass. Maybe a chandelier. Then metal scraping stone. Then another scream. Then silence. Then a different silence. Not the absence of noise, but the thick, breathless quiet that follows a breaking. You imagine the queen's mirrors cracked like eggshells. The marble chipped. The velvet torn. You imagine your own hand still clutching the corner of a sheet, while the world peels open like fruit left too long in the sun. You stay hidden. You do not know how long. When you open the door, finally, your legs are stiff. The hallway is empty. The smell has changed. Less like beeswax, more like sweat and dust, and something sour beneath it. You walk slowly, careful not to let your shoes tap too loudly. You pass a fallen tray. You pass a snapped fan. You pass a chair with one leg broken and the cushion askew. You pass a hat you recognize but cannot place. It lies upside down in the corridor, like someone expected it to catch something. There are no guards now. No nobles. No orders. You do not hear the queen. You do not hear anyone. You make your way toward the queen's apartments, unsure why. Perhaps to check. Perhaps because your body is still trained to go there. The salon outside her chamber is empty. The doors are ajar. The fire has gone out. Inside, the bed is unmade. Not dramatically, just enough to suggest haste. The dressing table is overturned. A bottle of perfume has shattered on the floor, and the room smells like crushed flowers. In panic, one slipper lies beneath a chair, turned on its side. A scarf trails from a drawer, half pulled. It is not chaos, not exactly. It is departure. You stand in the doorway and feel your mouth go dry. No one came for you. No one said your name. No one assigned you a task. No one handed you a bundle or pointed to a carriage. The queen left, whether by force or obedience, you do not know. and the palace folded around her exit like a theater curtain. But you remained, not important enough to arrest, not dangerous enough to notice. You retrace your steps to the linen room, not because it holds comfort now, but because it is where you began the day. You find the door still ajar. Inside, everything is exactly as it was. The shelves, the water basin, the stack of napkins that were to be ironed. You run your hand along the edge of the counter and feel the wood beneath your skin like a memory. Not soft, not sharp, just there. You return to the corridor and walk toward the main hall. The chandeliers still hang above, but one is swaying just slightly, as if someone brushed past it in haste. The mirrored walls catch your reflection in fragments. You look pale. Your apron is wrinkled. There's a smear of dust across your sleeve. You do not remember acquiring it. Your hair has come loose from its pin. You adjust it, more out of habit than vanity. There's no one left to impress. No one left to correct you. Outside, you can still hear distant movement. The grinding of wheels. The snap of whips. The murmur of a crowd that is no longer a mob, but not yet dispersed. You do not go to the window again. You do not need to see them. You know what they look like. You know because you remember your village. You remember what hunger does to posture, what grief does to eyes. You walk through the salon where the queen once played cards. The table is still set. The cushions still fluffed. One glass lies on its side, the wine staining the carpet like a wound. You step around it carefully. You step over a handkerchief embroidered with a crown. You enter the corridor near the Hall of Mirrors and stop. It is empty, not just unoccupied. Emptied, like a feast stripped from its bones. No perfume, no song, no footsteps. You're standing in the center of the world, and no one remains. You realize then that the thing you have feared all along has already happened. Versailles has fallen. You don't stay. There's no reason to. No orders, no meals, no people. You return to the attic where your bundle is already half-packed. Not because you planned for this, but because you always packed light. A spare shift, a comb. You tie it all into a cloth and walk out through the servant's entrance. No one stops you. The guards are gone. The carriages are gone. Even the dogs are gone. Versailles does not see you leave. But then again, it never really saw you at all. Years later, no one asks your name. No one wonders who combed the queen's hair or folded her linen underthings or lit the fire in her dressing chamber while she muttered complaints about the weather. No one remembers who scoured the gilt chamber pots with vinegar or fetched the rouge that clung to her cheeks long after the smiles had vanished. You are not in the pamphlets or the memoirs. You are not in the history books or the speeches or the guillotine ledgers. And yet, you were there, closer than most. You knew the queen's breath smelled of sugared lemon and something sour beneath. You knew her silk sweat under candlelight. You knew that no throne is immune to mildew. You do not tell people this. What would be the point? The revolution came and took the palace. Then the heads. Then the meaning. It swept over everything like a flood and left debris behind. You were part of the furniture. Now you're just part of the silence. You live somewhere modest, a shared loft with cracked windows, or perhaps a corner of a relative's home, though they treat you like a guest who stayed too long. You sell lace. Maybe you patch hems. You wash other people's sheets with hands that once folded royal gowns. You move quietly, and people don't ask why. You have a knack for not being seen. You always did. Sometimes, when you close your eyes, you remember how the light used to catch on the gold trim of the queen's mirror. Not because it was beautiful. It wasn't, not truly. But because it was fragile. A single knock, and it would crack. You remember the sound of slippers tapping marble in a slow, practiced rhythm. You remember the queen's half-hearted laugh, too sharp at the edges. You remember the weight of silence in rooms where 20 people were present and none dared speak first. You remember the layers of powder, of perfume, of hierarchy, of decay. You don't remember when you stopped believing in forever. Perhaps it was the day the queen thanked you, not unkindly, but as if she weren't sure whether you were real. Or the day you saw the rats eating crumbs beneath the feast table while a duchess praised the divine order of the world. Or the morning you watched a nobleman burn a letter with shaking hands. His wig still asks you from last night's revelry. The cracks were always there. Versailles didn't fall in a day. It fell slowly, in whispers and glances and empty corridors where laughter used to echo. You hear that the queen is dead, not from anyone official. It trickles through the market stalls and laundry lines. A woman with a basket says it in passing, the way one might mention the weather. You do not cry. You do not cheer. You feel instead a strange quiet, as if something you once held in your hands has finally broken. And now you're free to set it down. You were not her friend, not even her servant, in the end, but you carried pieces of her. Powder on your apron, hair in your brush, regret in your silence. Some evenings, when the sky turns the same pale shade it used to through the windows of the queen's chamber, you wonder what might have happened if you had spoken, said something, anything, asked her if she was afraid, told her you were. But that would have been absurd. You weren't there to speak. You were there to serve, quietly, invisibly. And even now, it seems easier to remain that way. You pass the years as women like you always do. In kitchens, in cellars, in washhouses. Your back aches more than it should. Your hands never quite lose the scent of soap and old perfume. A scar on your thumb from a jeweled pin catches the light sometimes, though no one ever asks how it got there. You do not volunteer. You watch people argue in taverns about kings and liberties and freedom, and you fold your hands in your lap because you've seen what all of that looks like up close. Freedom, you suspect, is something other people get to feel. There are stories now, plays, pamphlets, pretty little speeches. The queen as a martyr, the queen as a monster, the queen as a mother, the queen as a joke. You have seen her in all those roles, and in none. Mostly you saw a woman, frightened, bored, brittle, sometimes kind, often detached, always doomed. They say she said, "Let them eat cake." You don't remember her saying it. You remember her saying nothing most of the time, which you think was worse. Your dreams are quiet now, not nightmarish, not pleasant, just fragments. A chair leg cracking beneath too much embroidery. The smell of lavender powder clinging to sweat. A hallway lined with mirrors, each one reflecting a different version of yourself. You wake with your jaw clenched, though you don't remember why. Sometimes you hum a tune from the Royal Quartet, one they played while Paris starved. It sounds different now, flatter, off-key. You do not tell anyone you once lived in Versailles. Who would believe you? And what would it matter? The revolution is a story now, and you are not in it. You are not the spark, nor the flame, nor the ash. You were the dust swept aside as history marched through gilded doors. You were a girl with sore feet and silent hands and no illusions left to break. You saw everything, and you held nothing. Sleep comes slowly these days. The body forgets how to rest when it has spent so long preparing to run. But eventually, sleep arrives. And in sleep, the palace still stands. The halls are warm. The candles are lit. The queen is late for her toilette. You are already there, waiting, rouge in hand. And in the dream, she looks at you, really looks, as if you matter. And you wake up before she says a word.